na 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 na
Square
na
round table. You know, you need to tune in if you want to hear you know. So we Chad, Josh, Dmitri, and Marcus every Friday. You know.
It's the square round table.
Tune in.
It's the square round table podcast. Let's have a blast. I know at work you had a long day. Just relax and tune in.
What's going on, my freaks and geeks? Welcome to the Square Round Table podcast. I want to thank all of our viewers and listeners for joining us tonight for another amazing episode. And guys, we have a very special guest with us tonight, a guy that we have referenced multiple times on this podcast. So it is such an honor that we finally get to meet and chat. Before we get into everything, guys, I just want to go ahead and introduce and say that it's an amazing honor to be in the presence of a true icon, guys. And this is an icon not only in the film industry, but an icon in horror, which you know is near and dear to my heart. So our guest, guys, has paved the way for many directors such as Nia DaCosta and Jordan Peele and Little Marvin. These guys that continue to diversify the genre of horror, which once again is near and dear to my heart, guys. Without further ado, please welcome director of Blacula and Dr. Black and Mr. Hyde, as well as a lot of other great projects, guys, Mr. William Crain.
Hello, thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Oh, you're welcome. And I had to put a little spice on it because, like I said, this is an honor. One thing I want to say immediately, when I told my parents that we were going to chat with you, they literally freaked out. Like they were so excited because Blacula is a big part of their lives. That's one of the first movies that my dad actually bought for my mom. So they're huge fans. It means a lot to them. But I told them I was going to shout them out.
Tell your dad hello, and that monster just won't die. He may be coming back.
Hey, that's what I'm talking about. That is what I'm talking about. Awesome. I'll definitely let him know. He's going to love that. But one of the things that we want to just go ahead and ask you, one thing that we do for all of our guests, I know we talked a little bit about it before and what you were doing when you just got back from your trip, but how have you been feeling? How's everything been going? I know it's a new year. We just want to get a mental health check and just see how you're doing.
The trip was really hard. That's why I gave you that scenario about jumping on boats and trains and running down corridors. I was exhausted, really exhausted. I laid in my bed for at least 3 days.
I bet.
I love adventures. I've been to Australia and Mexico and down deep. This trip was amazing, and I had a good time. What I had planned to do and what I've been writing on, I taught a class at Merrick Studios here in LA several years ago, prior to Blacula. And a student, they were teaching acting, and a student called me about 3 years ago and said, look, I got a script. Can you help me out with it? I said, what is it? And he said, it takes place in Haiti, and it's a snake that turns into a human and causes havoc. And I said, oh, I read the script, and boy, it needed a lot of work. That's been 3 years ago. He worked on Penitentiary, I think, and something, but minimal credits. Good guy. Irving Parham is his name. So we worked on this, and just when I got ready to go to England, I said, I think I've done everything I could do. When he sent it to me, he had about 40 pages. Now he's got the 120. He wants to change it. And like doing a Rembrandt, you're going to change something. You have a painting, you got it set up, you want to make a little change. You're going to do the same thing with your scripts when you write them, and the same thing with the movies. You could go in and change something that you think would be a little better or a fresh idea. And you drive the crew crazy when you do it, but that's your film. So when I got back, I thought, what should I do? You know what, you guys, what would be a trifecta for me is to do a shapeshifter and to do a werewolf. So that would tie in with my vampire and tie in with Dr. Black. So I hung on to this Damballa. This is the snake monster. And we can't go to Haiti anyway, by the way. I wouldn't even think about going to Haiti now. So he's going to have to try to shoot it somewhere else. I'll direct it if he wants me to. But I thought, and then in the back of my head, I also have a Western. So I'm all over the damn place. I got a Western that's, woo! I hope my leash is long enough for me to do this Western, man. You're going to be back, and your father and them are going to go see this and say, oh boy, we got one going here. And I know Westerns are coming back, but this is a monster.
Yes.
So what am I doing now? To answer your question, I'm in laying here thinking, what am I doing every day? And I get up and change my gas stove to induction, and I'm all over the place. I'm just scattered. I'm just roaring to come out of the smokehouse and do something, but I don't have the first word written.
That sounds about right.
It's like that sometimes.
I don't have anything. So I got a Western over here. I got a werewolf over here. And so I have to do one of these. And so where are we in 2023? It's still January, right? I still got a little bit to go, don't I?
Got a little bit of time.
Just a little bit.
Okay,
Yes,
so that's where I am right now. I'm in between, not knowing which way to go. I'm all over the place. You want to guide me into this? Guide me into
it. Look, sometimes that's all it takes is a little bit of a guiding light to get you through.
Yeah.
But
Well,
that's
listen, Maisha, the lady that did the question and answer in Wales, she came up with a concept. And I said, oh, that's a good idea. She said, just relax. I'll send this to you. And I said, thank you, because I can do the visuals. Just give me a concept. So I don't know. I'm still waiting on that. And I'll tell you, I was thankful.
Oh, that's awesome.
We'll see what happens. Can you imagine? You guys would be around and do a werewolf?
No, seriously. It's because we have some things like as far as a good, solid. What's been the last like werewolf project? I know there's Teen Wolf. Did Marvel do project?
Marvel, they just did Werewolf by Night or something like that.
Yeah, I think
was
like
it something lately came out with a werewolf? Yes.
Yeah, Marvel.
Yeah, it was,
they did something on Disney Plus with Marvel.
it was the I think it was the last thing Werewolf was the Teen Wolf movie.
Was it any good?
The Marvel one was good. I haven't seen what the team, but the
Yeah,
Marvel
Wolf
one,
okay.
it gave a lot of homage to the classical horror from the 30s, but it was like it was done in this like time, but they did in like black and white, and they used a lot of like themes and the way they did shots, and then they actually used practical effects with the werewolf, like he was in makeup and stuff.
Wait, run that by me again. They used the what?
They used practical effects with the werewolf, actually. Like he was in a costume and makeup and everything. So it wasn't like all CGI.
Interesting.
That's what I said. I was very caught off guard by that, but it looked really good. It was really
I'll have
good.
to check that out. Yeah, I'm gonna definitely have to check that out.
So that technique is still around. I'm a little behind you guys, but that technique is still around, right?
Yes,
I mean, this is
In
all just
some films. Yeah.
Say again.
I was saying in some films like to use the practical effects like costumed monsters and sometimes stop motion, but more often than not. And I don't know, I want to know how you feel about this as well, Mr. Crain, because a lot of movies, especially in horror right now, use a lot of like CGI and it looks fine, but I feel like it takes away from the tangibility of the character or whoever they're trying to portray. So how do you feel about a lot of the newer horror films that are more so relying on computer graphics than actual material?
When I did writing this Bala that I think I'm going to back out of, I haven't told Parham that yet, but I may back out of it just because I want to do my stuff. And he's taking control of the script anyway. It's his script, written by original story by on and on. But the snake monster has to come from the underworld to get up to America, or get up to the world here, our world. And then he goes out and kills a lot of people who he gets assigned to kill. So on the way up, I have him come through the ocean, and he comes through the ocean for 3 days coming through the ocean. So I can have a whole bunch of stuff with the underwater. And now I understand the movie is out with the water, and the latest movie that's underwater, that's probably some CGIF, but I was going to hire the tanks and have him get into a fight with an octopus, and an eel come and save him, and he swims away until he finally gets up on Earth. Your question is, what do I think about the CGI? If I can do it without CGI, I would, but I think I'm not sure. I'm with you. CGI then takes it to cartoon time. Yeah.
I agree. I definitely agree.
Yeah, I mean, we saw those cartoons, and so if it becomes cartoon, it's no fun for me. If you believe that this werewolf is actually changing, and it takes time because you got to put makeup, that. But once you do it and the actor is good, you got a real horror thing going on there.
Thank you. Exactly.
You know? So that's just my take on it. And I haven't shot anything with CGI, but I tell you, I don't think I'm going to. And if I do, man, you call me up. You say, hey, you promised me you wouldn't do that.
I will definitely hold you to it. I will hold your feet to the fire for sure.
Yeah, but no, I definitely share them, like those same views about CGI, because the great thing about just having prosthetics and like an actual costume is that it pretty much allows you to think. But basically, it being CGI, it's obvious that it's CGI. And when you have an actual prosthesis on the actor, it creates the illusion that the creature is actually real.
Yeah.
No,
exactly.
It does.
Yeah.
That's what you want to do. It's supposed to be real. So you be ducking down in your seat in the movie, hiding. Your girlfriend be beside you, putting her hand over. That's what you want. That's what you want.
That's the good
Yes,
stuff.
sir. Yes.
You want, and then when you do that first killing, you want somebody to get up out of the audience and be rushing to the door in the back.
Just
I
go.
said, well, next time I get ready to do a movie like that, I'm gonna hire somebody to jump up out of the seat and run to the exit door. Cheater, yeah, that's me.
Like, yeah, hey, I'm not mad at that at all.
Yeah.
Definitely.
But Mr. Crain, one of the things that I wanted to get into, because we talked a lot about, like I said, your views on newer movies, horror films, they use a lot of CGI. I wanted to know a lot about your background. So first of all, just wanted to know, where did you grow up? Where are you from? And what made you want to become a filmmaker as a career?
I was born in Columbus, Ohio. My mom and dad they didn't make it, so mom jumped on a super chief and came out to California when I was a baby. And so I've been here most of the time, most of my life. I went to school here. I went to UCLA and USC trying to find out what I'm going to do. The root of my film desire actually was, you used to sell papers on the corner, newspapers, to make my money. We in LA had something called the Sentinel that was Black written, Black owned. But I'd sell LA Times and Herald and make enough money during the week to buy my popcorn and to buy stuff. And we'd go to the local theater that was playing movies. Movies cost about 50 cents to get in. I don't want to tell you how much because then you really know how old I am. But it was pennies to get in. And we'd stay there all day. I'd see my mom come down the aisle, down the other side. I'd gone there in the morning, and it'd be in the afternoon, maybe 6 p.m., 7 p.m. She'd come get me. And not by the year, she enjoyed it because she knew where I was. Like I know where my son is now. I was in the movies, watching movies, and we'd walk back, or what'd you think of the movie? She liked to go to movies too, which is pretty cool. So that kind of started it. Now, then I don't think at that time I knew about directing, although I'd sit on my front porch and we'd play ball out in front, and I'd have guys walk down the street like they were in Western movies. I'd be doing that. I guess I was directing then. I don't know. This was just local. I will tell you that when I did my first TV show, which was Mod Squad, you guys were babies at that time, but you'd have to sit in a screening room at the movie lot. And if you were going to look for a particular actor or a particular scene, you'd have the guy running the projector to run the movie. I'd be the only one, and the house had maybe 12 seats in it, maybe 20. It depended, but I'm sitting there by myself. And I sat there and I pushed a little button on the side and say, okay, run the film. And I couldn't help but think, hey man, you guys ought to see me now, man. I'm sitting in a movie studio. I'm looking at a movie and they're paying me to do this shit. I don't believe it, man. I'm being paid. I want my money back from all them times they paid to go see movies because they're paying me to watch a movie. Now, I don't know how good it gets after that. So
that's awesome.
When did I start? And I kind of got into James Baldwin, and he did a play called Amen Corner. And so I got involved in that in LA. And I did a small introductory role out of that. And we all were talking about movies, making movies, and that's where I bit. And when they ran that, I made a decision. At one point, they were going to go to New York. So they ran Amen Corner in New York. And he asked me to do, Frank Silvera, asked me to do the lead role. And I had this bite, man. I wanted to load film. I said, I'm going to go up to Toronto and learn how to make movies. I said, no, come on, do this thing in New York, then you can go. But I didn't do it. And I wonder sometimes if I made a mistake, but I don't think so, because you guys think I'm a big shot. I went and learned. I worked with CBC. I did some series there. I did some car stunts. We're from LA. We know how to drive. Crazy car stunts I could do, turn some car overs in the movies. But I watched a couple of directors I was fascinated with and learned how to do it. And after 7 years, I said, maybe it's time to go home. And I was in LA. I was back here in LA, 4 months hanging out at Columbia, not begging for a job, but very visual. Only brother around that knew anything about movies. I knew anything about cameras, let me say that. And they came along and said, we got a mod squad for you. You want to do it? And I said, well, let me think about it. Woo, man, I went home and jumped up and clicked my heels. Mom, guess what? I'm going to direct a mod squad. I said, what? So after that, I was always fascinated with horror movies. And they were the most unique movies that we could see. I think Frankenstein, Dracula, and all of those. And I got attached to doing that. So that's where I started.
Wow. And that's really amazing. And I just want to know where your stick-to-itiveness came from. Because just the way that you stuck to it, because like you were saying, at that time, there weren't a lot of Black directors at all. So what was that environment like for you?
Oh, it was tough. It was really tough. Some of those guys, let's just face it, there was no mega then, but you could call them mega now. They resented the fact that I was there. They resented the fact that I was telling them what to do. I don't know if I'm proud of this one or not, but I had to take one guy backstage, behind the stage, and say, look, I know you have a family and this is your gig, but this is my job to direct. And if you keep this up, you and me are either going to go to blows or you're going to have to find another job. And they pawed the dirt and we looked at each other square on, nose to nose. He shook his head and I knew where he was coming from. He knew where I was coming from. That was probably the worst in doing Black. I had Thomas and Denise Nicholas come out of a no, wait a minute. Thomas, the doctors found a vampire in the grave, dug him up, and he had to kill him with a stake through the heart. So then they were going to go back and they were going to go back to the morgue and find this cab driver who they think was going to turn into a vampire, which she did. That was where you see her running down in slow motion. But when they come out of the house, Thomas goes to get, you guys still there? Oh, Thomas goes to get his police buddy. And it was up a set of stairs and I had him park in the driveway. So I'm down below the porch and I asked the sound guy to give me a set of earphones, right? And so I could hear the dialogue. So I can't be very close to hear them. I don't want them to shout. They're talking and getting ready to run down to the car. I put these earphones on and the sound guy was 20 yards away, maybe 25 yards away, sitting at his sound desk with his knobs and stuff. And I got to tell you guys, when Thomas came out of the house and said something, the fucking volume was sky high. It blasted me. And he didn't have to have that volume that high. I could have told him turn it down. I could have told him something, but he had it up like that. And it was expecting me. And I don't know, it's so hard to think about, but it's a true story. If you ever write it, it's a true story. I took the headphones off and I looked at him and he sat right at his desk and looked at me and we stared at each other for a while. Nobody else knew what was going on because I had the headphones on, right? So no one knew what that was all about. And what do? I just called for a retake, had to almost go back upstairs, and I took the headphones and just dropped them right on the dirt, right on the driveway. He looked at me and I looked at him. We knew, between him and me, we knew what was going on. But so there were a lot of issues like that. A lot of issues like that. One where a guy had come on. He was an extra, and we had shot on the location. I think it was Starsky and Hutch I was doing, and I've managed to get the shot finished by lunchtime so we could move the whole company onto the soundstage and do the rest of the day. But I got there first. It took me there to the stage, and then they're moving on, having lunch and bringing the equipment on the sound stage. And this guy said to me, so how you doing? You working this show? And I said, yeah. And he said, yeah, I'm here to work this show. I said, I want to see what this asshole director has to do. I want to see what he's doing. I'm going to give him a piece of my mind. And I'm thinking, wait a minute, I got on jeans and a t-shirt or something. He doesn't know I'm the director. He doesn't know that because he wouldn't be talking to me like that. I said, I'll give this motherfucker a piece of my mind. So finally showed up, and they brought the stuff in and brought the actors in, and we finally got ready to shoot the first take. And the take was over, and this guy slid up to me, man, and said, I'm sorry, man. I'm sorry. I apologize to you. I was out of line. Just didn't know what I was doing. Had no idea. And I said to him, when you guys look at movies, and you guys ought to know this too with your group, people don't know who the director is unless you guys just know me. But if you look at a movie, you don't know whether that director was white or black or Asian or Hawaiian or something else. You don't know. And in those days, people would be looking at my movies, Charlie's Angels, Starsky and Hutch, SWAT, Rookies. They didn't know the director was direct. The director was black. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Film doesn't tell you that.
Nope.
It doesn't have the signature on it. And even though when your name goes across the screen, they don't know who you are. That's what it was like. I could go on and say that because it makes my career, or makes me maybe resentful, but I didn't. I was young and full of piss and vinegar. I was young. I was young, and I wasn't going to let them stop me. You know what I mean?
I got you. I
They
understand.
had their stuff to do. I had my stuff to do, and I'm gonna go home happy and then get up in the morning and be the first one on the set. I was doing what I wanted to do. They couldn't tell me anything, and I was the boss on the set. I don't know. Does that give you a good answer?
Yeah,
Oh,
that's a
yeah.
wonderful answer.
Wonderful.
Yeah, it's a
I mean,
great answer.
it's just really cool. You like watching your films and watching your movies, and getting the background of, because like you said, when you watch it, you don't know what's going on. If you're not really paying attention, you don't know the director is black man. So it's like being able to get this history and the background of what was actually going on is truly eye-opening. So yes, that was a wonderful answer.
Oh yeah, it's definitely cool because that's a very true and a statement, because coming up as a child myself, watching movies, it never crossed my mind like what the director looked like, because I'm watching the movie. So all I care about is what's on that screen, and if I like it or not. And if I like it or not. I didn't know Steven Spielberg did Jurassic Park, Coppola did The Godfather. I didn't know you did Blacula. I didn't know a lot. Spike Lee did Do the Right Thing. I didn't know these guys until I was in my teenage years, and I started studying film and getting interested in it. But that's what's important about it, because that just show you if you do your job right and you execute it the way you supposed to, it doesn't matter who you are and how you look. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly, because they're looking at the action and you're looking at the actor, like the actress and actor. They don't use actress anymore. You have to get me on that one. But I'm just teasing. But I just don't know.
Yes.
I have one thing that happened on Blacula that people still talk about today, and I guess I'm proud of it. It's when Kitty Lester, the cab driver, gets bit by Blacula, and they put her in they have this thing outside the taxi. What are you doing, boy? Run around here, you're looking for some poontang. You're going to get bit. And he looks at her. She calls him a boy, and he bites her. That's the end of her. Put her in that room. So the location I picked was an old police station, and Elijah Cook, an old actor who'd been around forever, was the morgue. And so when Thomas and them leave, I got this here thing in my head. When they leave the house to go to the morgue to see Kitty Lester, she's supposed to be in the thing, but Thomas called the morgue guy and said, take her out of the freezer because I wanted to fall out. So when we get there, but Sam, whatever you do, lock the door, Sam. Don't mess around, lock the door. Sam gets confused, had this hook in his hand, and he didn't lock the door. You know what the scene I'm talking about. You know the scene I'm getting to.
Oh yeah.
And so where Sam was talking on the phone in the outer office, his morgue office was, again, 20, 25 yards away, where she's in there. And we rolled her out on the gurney, and we used stuff to pat her down to make it look like she's thawing out. But when she comes out of the door, she's to come running down to him and attack him. I told Sam Markoff and the people at AIP, look, I'd like to use a high-speed camera on this because I want to do it in slow motion. They said, oh, no, you can't get no high-speed camera, just shoot it. And I asked for it, and they said, no. I don't know what happened. I'll tell you this at the end. But one day the day we're ready to shoot this, the hour we're ready to shoot this, I had the cinema camera up there, and we were running live film through the camera to see if I could run the film up to 120 frames a second, trying to make the film slow motion because it doesn't run that fast. And it's running through the sprockets. The side door was open. We could see the film going through the camera. And I'm saying, turn it up. Let's see how fast it'll go. We weren't shooting anything, but I wanted to see if I was just going to destroy the film or if it would work. Man, in the middle of that, one assistant comes up, Mr. Crain, and said, yes, sir. He said, there's a cameraman downstairs in the parking lot who wants to know, what do you need him here for? What? I said, send him up. He came up, young guy came up, and he said, what are you doing? And I said, I asked for a high-speed camera. He said, I got it downstairs. What do you need?
Wow. Awesome.
I don't believe it, man. I could get knocked over so easy. I said, you kidding me? He said, no, what do you want? So I had Kitty go back behind the door and say, okay, she's going to come out of that door. And I had her trot, just not run full blast. She needed to come down here, run this 20 yards right at us, right at the camera, and kill Sam. And he said, piece of cake. So he said, I'm going to go down and get the camera and do what you have to up here. Put the guys on the big dolly and move the big camera, the great big one, and moves it out of the way. And everybody's standing around against the door saying, oh, shit, what we got going here now? Oh, man. And I got to tell you, when I hollered action, she came, they got to set up a couple of rehearsals, got to set up, and I said action, and she came out of that door. You've seen it, right? They talk about that scene from now on. And I think every day I would have to go back to the new location. I never sat at AIP, American International Pictures, and saw that footage, but I understood they were in the aisles screaming. The producers and the people in the office and stuff. That knocked them over. So that shot lasts for the day. Am I excited about that? I'm excited about that. Anytime you can pull off something like that in your filmmaking, do it.
Oh, that's
definitely
super dynamic.
And that's why I got into film and why I love it so much. Because it's things like that. It's totally unpredictable. You think you know how everything's gonna go, and then something happens like that, and it becomes like a beautiful and magical moment. And you just you can't put like a price on that or anything.
No idea.
You gotta sit back and just let it happen. And I love it so much.
Yeah, no idea.
Yeah. And I hadn't realized that in order to do like slow motion, you needed like a really high speed camera. Thought it was the other way around.
No, what you're doing is you're running the film faster than it should be. So the person that's going, it looks like they're crawling. You know what I mean? Yeah, you got to have, today, I don't know if you'd call it a high speed camera. I'm just calling it, but it was a 16 millimeter, whatever it was, but it was running the film through the camera at or better than 120 frames a second. It was flying through there. But that slows the action down, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Sir.
Oh, that's it.
Yeah. And another thing that I really liked about that scene is how her hair was just like all over the place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had to apologize to her too, because Kitty was just I saw Kitty about 6 months ago, and I told her I apologized to her because when she was getting ready to thaw out, she's in the freezer. They roll her out, leave her there. Sam goes out. Then the makeup guys on pieces of sponge or pieces of, I guess it'd be sponge, they were putting some kind of oil. What's the oil you take when you're trying to get your digestive system to go?
Castor oil?
Yeah, castor oil.
Yeah.
Castor oil, fine. So they would dab her a piece at a time, dab her face, dab her neck close to her breast, just dab her a little bit. So the object of that was that as time would go on, I would go shoot something else. But as time would go on, there would be more and more that was supposed to be her perspiring and her thawing out from the freezer. You follow what I mean? So when you got a whole lot of that on her, it looked like she was thawing out. And finally, we shot the thing against the blinds where she finally sits up off the thing and then she's lying. Kitty Lester was angry because this white boy was dabbing her with this castor oil all over her chest, not over her breast, but close. And she didn't know what was going on. She didn't know what I didn't explain to her. I just, that was a mistake I made as a director. I said, we got to make it look like you're thawing out. I never told her that. Boy, she was angry at me. Woo, she was angry at me. I had this white boy dabbing her with this coat, with this castor oil. What the hell is this? So you run into some stuff like that from time to time.
And that's funny. Me and Joshua were just talking about that effect. So that's crazy that you actually mentioned that because we were trying to figure out like how you got that kind of thawed out look. So that's kind of pretty cool.
That's making film. That's not CGI. That's really making it work.
That's how you make a movie right there.
Yeah,
that's it.
Yeah. No, I just thought it was like water or something.
No, it kind of, if it was water, it was just rolled out. Right? Just
right,
rolled
right.
off, right?
Yeah.
But you had to make it stick like it was thawing out. So I made that up on the way, and I don't know, it seemed to work, and I still hear about it. That was 50 years ago.
Man, wow. Yeah.
Like I said, that's just the mark of a fantastic job. And one of the things that stuck out to me about the film, a couple of things really that stuck out to me about the film, because I know the era that it was in, but a couple of the things that I love are the representation, number one, because two of the main characters, one is a doctor and the other one, they're both scientists. And I love how they're portrayed very seriously, not in a jokingly manner. I love how Blacula is portrayed. Like I said, he's William is completely the thespian.
Yeah.
Completely, just his acting is just, like I said, it's amazing. And I wanted to know, as far as the regular script or the original script, how much of that was changed in the final product? Or was a lot of that I already mentioned present? Did you go in? Was the film meant to be the way we saw it?
No, the answer is no, was not. I can't remember all how this put together. On a couple of interviews, I have told the story. So if you hear it again, maybe it'd be a little different. But there were words around that the script was supposed to be Count Brown's in town.
Count Brown's in town. I do remember that. Yes.
And had you heard that before?
I heard the Brown's in town part.
Yeah, Count Brown's in town. And at that time, historically, AIP, American International Pictures, was doing blaxploitation films. I hate to call it that, but that's what it was. And they had actors that had meat cleavers and chopping on meat with a chopping meat. And I think it was Fred Williamson or Jim Brown. Somebody had a meat cleaver and they had to show their strength. And for some reason, they had him have this meat cleaver and hack on this meat that was hanging in the meat freezer. And the killings and some of the stuff was just, it was just sad. Mantan Marlin. Are you old enough to remember Mantan Marlin? You know any idea who that is? Mantan Marlin was back in the Jack Benny days and back in the brothers who did the dancing. And they would let some actors do things, but they had that kind of nonsense.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about.
I know what you mean.
Yeah, it was that era with like with Nicholas brothers and Lena Horne and all them, and they would have like certain black characters in the movies, in the films, but they would have them do those exaggerated expressions.
Exactly, to do just that.
Yeah, exactly.
And even though there wasn't that element in the script, I have to be careful here, I don't want to ruin somebody, but they wanted to hire Scully Mitchell, they wanted to hire Mantan. I don't know who they really wanted, but they hadn't hired anybody. I had worked with William Marshall in some little theater in town here in LA. And he had, as you say, a true thespian, good English, good presence, respectful. And so I said, this is how I want the character to be. But either they were going to do that or fire me. And I said, I want him to be, he's a prince, Prince Mamuwalde from Africa somewhere. He's a prince. No, he's not a crap shooting thug, not smoking any shit. Just he's a prince. So he's really gonna come with some finesse, some class. And they liked it. They hadn't thought about it like that. And so as they're watching it every day in dailies, they're watching him. And the love affair between him and his lady I think it was just great. So it was a love affair. It wasn't foo-hoo-poo-hoo. You know what I mean?
Oh, I definitely understand that. Oh, and I loved it. Yeah, I loved every moment of his acting. And like I said, I don't know if it was like, I know at the time it wasn't knowingly, but you definitely see now like that type of character and the stamp that you and William made, just the way Dracula is even handled. Because just the air that he had about him, he's, like I said, he's proper. He's got this air about him because he was a prince, but he's also cool.
Yeah,
I look at things right now. I don't know if you've been watching it, but what I've really been interested in is the newest version of Anne Rice's Interview with a Vampire. And
no, I should see that. I'm just afraid to look at it because I don't want to steal anything from it. But is it good?
Well, when you say, I wouldn't say steal, but when I look at the main character, it reminds me a lot of what you and William did with Blacula. Like, he's that guy. Like I said, he's got this air about him, but he's also cool and calm and collected. And he's not crazy. He does do his killings and all of that. But overall, like the blueprint that you guys laid down, there's no way you can tell me that the director and the creator of that series didn't have you guys in mind when forming that character. So
you think so? Really?
Wow. Yeah, you can't tell me. You see it in other places too, like Joshua and Marcus. Think about the way that you're talking about. That's groundbreaking. Like at the time, you guys portraying African print, like sitting down to have a conversation with Dracula about suppressing the transatlantic slave trade. That's huge. Yeah. And you can think about the way like T'Challa is portrayed and the way T'Chaka is portrayed and that air that they have as characters. Like I said, this is all things that branched out from the blueprint that you guys laid down. And it's awesome.
Definitely.
And man, I gotta stay around a little longer, right? I just gotta be here, man, and make you guys another one.
Yes.
Yes.
Completely. Yeah, totally.
Make another one.
Yeah, definitely. Another thing that I thought was obviously inspired from Blacula, from Interview with a Vampire, it's kind of like a little bit of they treated like their vampires and Blacula. I like the aspect of Blacula having transformation when he was like when he's in the process of him being about to bite someone. And it's the same way with Interview with a Vampire. Like basically the vampires in there, they don't like their appearance kind of alters somewhat before they actually, I guess when they're actually in the act of being dangerous. But when they're just being suave and cool, they just look like they did when they were alive.
You're right. With the vampire, you got to give him the teeth, and I don't know, we curled his chops up a little bit. I think you have to make him up and make him look. So and imagine what the werewolf will look like if I get to it. How he changes. You got to make him be like a wolf.
I already got like an image in my head.
You got it, really?
I got it.
You want to help me write it?
But of course I would. I'll be honored.
That'd be an honor for sure.
There's small changes. They're like the regular AIP. I got all kind of little picayune stuff because I was going to change the inside of his cape. And all of the vampires before had these red capes. And not that the outside was black, but the inside was red. And I don't know if you took and noticed that, but you will now that I've mentioned it to you, all the old ones. And I said, Marshall, he's a different vampire. He's not coming out of your stock. So I want the inside of his cape to be steel gray. And I got all kind of curious to that, man. The wardrobe went and told Arkoff, and somebody told somebody else. And Crain wants the cape to be steel gray or pearl gray or something inside. We can't do that. The vampire has his cape is red. We all know that. Wait. First of all, the motherfucker wasn't real to begin with.
Exactly.
Yes,
It comes from a story. You
I
can
got
do
to
whatever.
I gotta go with a red cape because that's what you guys did a long time ago. No, the cape is steel gray inside.
Yeah, no, like
Exactly.
especially with the cape. That was one thing that I like. That's really loved about Blacula. How he was Dracula, but he was his own thing. He
Yes.
didn't like because when we think about Dracula, we think like he looks real. It's malnourished, and
You're right,
he always
right.
has the fangs, and he
Right.
might have like
Pale.
red eyes or something. But I just like how he doesn't necessarily have to always look like that. He can just look like a
Exactly.
regular guy. And
Exactly.
he also still runs around. He doesn't
Yeah.
fly all the time. He just
Exactly.
like because the scene where he was running away from the policeman.
He
Right.
took off on foot.
So once I did that, and the wardrobe guy went to Sam Arkoff and went up to the top, and he said, give Crain what he wants. And I heard through a couple of people who worked in the office that the wardrobe guy was fuming, went back and stomping in his office and slammed the door. Come on,
All
man.
because of Kate.
Yeah, all because of the cape. He's my vampire,
No.
not yours.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I thought the cape was sharp. That's one of the first things when we watched the movie. I was like, dang, I love that. Just that color
Yeah,
palette
there
for
you
his
go.
Yeah.
Hey,
You
And plus, my favorite color is black, and then I like to complement it with a little gray. So I wasn't complaining. I thought it was awesome. And like you said, we tired of the traditional red cape. Nobody wants
Yeah.
to see that all the
Yeah,
time.
for sure.
And they still do it to this day now. Like with every iteration of Dracula, whether it's like animation, if it's in like a comic book movie, they throw some red in there somewhere. Like they just gotta have that
somewhere,
red.
yeah,
And I'm
yeah.
like, God, here we go again.
No, wait. Let me take you a step further. When they did Blacula Scream, was I going to do it? And they were coming off of the success of Blacula, and they were going to do Blacula Scream, and I had the energy to do it, but I said I did it. It's done. We're going to do a remake. And I don't know if you guys went to see that or not. I won't knock it, even though that director is gone now. They gave him a red cape.
Wow.
Did you see it?
wow.
Nah, I
Did you
didn't
see
see.
it?
I never seen that one.
I
See, I
never
would have been
saw Scream.
upset. I would have been highly upset.
That's what I'm telling you.
I'd
They
have
gave him
been
a red
highly
cape.
upset.
And they made sure I didn't go see it, and I walked away from him. But I think at one point, he knew vampire. No, it was William Marshall, but he pulls the cape off and it has to show it around or something. They make sure
Did you
Ah,
see that? Right?
that cape is red. I said, I'll be damned.
my goodness.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just gonna comment too, since we was touching on that subject about like blaxploitation and that
Mhm.
era, and like what the title of it is. It was like exploitation of those films, which was always a weird name for me to call it. Instead of just saying they just regular films, they were just made by Black people. But
Yeah.
I always think it's cool though that those were like the first set of heroes, action heroes that people like my parents, my uncles and aunts, they got to see, and it was passed down to us. And then a lot of that turned into lore and legend, and we get like
Right.
these cool comic book characters from it, parodies of it. And even to the point, like it flipped me out because literally 2 days ago, I'm in a comic book shop and I'm pulling comics out of the $1 box. And it's a recent comic, probably like from a couple of years ago, and on it is Shaft. And I
Yeah.
was like, it just blew my matter of fact, I think I got it like right here. It blew my mind because I'm like, just think of like how something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's just that's how important you guys are, especially
Yeah.
to guys like us who, are in that world, because whether it was 50 years ago, 10 years ago, it started. That's where it starts. And you just build on
Right.
that bridge.
Build up from there.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And even with Blacula, like I was reading recently, I think two black authors, they put out a Blacula novel not too long ago.
Really?
yeah, the story and the, like I said, guys just like us that, you know, what you guys were doing and see it and aren't afraid to talk about how what you did really made a huge splash, especially for horror in the African American community in pop culture. Like you, it
Yes.
was
Yeah,
huge.
yeah.
Still is.
Yes.
Blacula definitely lives on in a lot of the zeitgeist of like a lot of minds in this field. Like I said, in horror.
And it's so funny because when I was a kid, the first black vampire that I remember was Eddie Murphy's Vampire in Brooklyn. And I was
Right.
talking about it to, I think, my grandfather or somebody. He was like, "Oh, that ain't nothing." He's, "Let me show you a real black vampire." And he showed me Blacula, and I was like, "Oh,
Oh
like this is
no,
awesome."
really?
So it's just so cool how everything connects. And
Oh my gosh.
yeah. And every
Wow.
time I took a horror theory class in college, and no matter what I take, like what I study, or if I seen anything in horror, it always pops up somewhere. No
Always.
matter who's talking about. And it's crazy because you would think they would talk about they talk about the 30s, Dracula and all that with Bela Lugosi, but Blacula always comes up. And if it doesn't, I make sure I bring it up. So just know that. Just know
Absolutely.
that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, no, but not just with Black, because I also remembered how Chad said a little bit earlier how our dad bought Blacula was one of the first movies he bought our mom. I recall our dad also getting a few VHS tapes of Starsky and Hutch and Dukes of Hazzard.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I hadn't realized that you were also the director of Dukes of Hazzard.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
there you
Oh, that's
go.
awesome.
Some Starsky and
Awesome,
Hutch too.
man. Look,
Yeah.
hey.
It's just stuff that
That's
people just wouldn't know. Because when I saw that, I was like, it's crazy. And I think I remember you talking about when you were directing, it was Dr. Black and Mr. Hyde. Weren't you doing that at the same time as
Was I doing
like,
what? Yeah. Yeah. As a matter of fact. Man, I
what
was
was that like for you? Like hopping from one set to the other.
Yeah.
Hey man, it was a good time in my life. What can I tell you? You just come along and I'm doing one show, and the Dr. Black Mr. Hyde came along because the guy had lost his financing, and he actually was an assistant for me for us on the Blacula. And he got this money to do Dr. Black Mr. Hyde, but he lost it 2 or 3 or 4 times. And they finally said, unless you can pull this off next week or 2 weeks from now or something, we're going to take our money back. He called me, and I'm not bragging. Trust me, he pleaded with me to do this thing. And I said, what do you have? He showed it to me and looked at it, and I said, if we could do, you got 3, you've got 3, maybe 4 days at night. I forgot how I did this, but what happened was that the night scenes we did first because I was working Starsky and Hutch during the day. You're absolutely right. And he kind of hit me in my heart here, man, because that was a highlight of my whole directing thing. I'm directing episodic television during the day and then shooting off at night to do a horror movie. I was high on the hog in my head. I gotta tell you, it was pretty cool. You know,
Awesome.
and you get this feeling when the car pulled up on the new set of Dr. Black Mr. Hyde. They had been there and ready, but they don't know what they're going to shoot. But the trucks were parked and the chairs were there and the extras were. I had a girlfriend who daughter I was going to use as one of the kids just found the body, but they're all just standing there. Nothing had been set up, and the guys are sitting on the tailgates of the truck. And it's funny, man, when I walked on that thing behind that garage, things just lit right up, and the producers are there and said, "We've never seen anything like that." And I guess I should be proud of it, but I was overjoyed to hear it. When I say things lit up, people started moving around, engines started, and things started rolling out, and people were moving stuff around, and camera was rolling down the corridor. In other words, people started doing their work, and it just livened up. And the producers there, he said, "I've never seen anything like this." Because usually when you go, you're getting ready to get started. But there had been this time period where they sat there doing nothing, and all of a sudden it livened up. So you watch the whole movie set liven up and get started. So that was a highlight. I had a good time doing it, and I guess I pulled it off. Yeah,
I think so.
Yes, sir.
Definitely.
Definitely. Yes,
all
sir.
right.
That was awesome. That's awesome. Mr. Crain. Oh, go ahead, Josh. What are you about to say, man?
Oh, speaking about pulling it off, there was another, what was it? There was another prosthetic in Blacula when Blacula, I guess when Blacula started, yeah, when he walked up the stairs and went into the sun,
Oh yeah.
and it was a little scene where he was decomposing. How did you guys pull that off? Where like it was the smoke, and this to show like how his face gradually just decomposed and had the maggots in it.
Maggots.
Yeah, just a piece at a time. Just he's committing suicide. His woman, his wife, was killed, and he knew he was going to go up into the sun and commit suicide. He'd take 1 or 2 steps. I'd call cut, change the makeup a little bit, take a couple of more steps, and cut. And I think we did. No, don't quote me on here. I can't remember. I think we did 2 or 3 takes, and at each take, we'd add a little bit of makeup, and then he got a chance to weave to the right or weave to the left and do a little feigning and stuff. In other words, he acted it. He took it. I'm talking about Bill Marshall. He took it. He did it. And he was going up to his death. And then down toward the end, that wasn't him with the worms crawling around, but that was CGI with the worms crawling. Yeah. So
that's awesome.
Oh, okay. Because like I was actually thinking, oh, they probably got some real maggots and just everywhere.
Man, come on, wait a minute. You could be making film somewhere else. No, we pieced it together 1 step at a time, 2 steps at a time. And he put every ounce of glory into it. If you ever go Scream Blacula Scream, you'll see that they didn't have the showmanship, nor did they have the mise en scene down. Did they have the authority? Not the authority. Just come on, man. I'm a filmmaker, and I don't know what they decided to do with that. They had a mansion that they shot at, and they never left the mansion. They did everything. They changed rooms around, and there was some mansion that had covering over the furniture, and they were able to take one cover off of a piece of furniture so the actor could go in that particular room for a minute and do a couple of scenes. But it was so sad. So I'm glad I didn't do it. Not glad, just I made my statement, and it worked. If you ever see Scream Blacula Scream, you'll make the difference. And plus that director was white.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Changes things, doesn't it?
Just a little bit. Yeah, just a little bit. But that's the thing that we like about like I said, the first film. One comment that I made to Josh when we watched it, I was just like, wow, I love how each scene led to the other. It wasn't, I mean,
exactly.
You talk about it. Yeah, exactly. And you talk about in films, like a lot of things that we see, especially in a lot of newer films, whenever I watch a review, they always say the film was not 2 hours, but like 1 hour, 85 minutes. They could have shaved like 15 minutes off of that. They could have shaved. When I watch this film, I don't feel like anything should have been shaved off. Everything was needed. Every time William on screen, he's amazing. Everything gives reason. There's things that are going on that aren't really talked about that much, and it leaves you asking questions. One of the biggest questions that I had to Joshua, I was wondering, because in the beginning of the movie, of course, Blacula, and right after he gets turned, he gets locked up by Dracula, him and his wife. And of course, the first part of the film, when he runs into the woman that he falls in love with, he calls her by his wife's name. And I was wondering, I'm like, okay, so does she just look like her, or is she a descendant of her? What was that whole thing about? Are they related in any type of way, or did he just seemingly think that was her and he fell in love with her just because she looked like her in a certain type of way? Or was there more going on?
Yeah, that's what I think. Sure. We are storytelling here, and I could have hired a different actress to act that role, but I don't think so. It should have been Vanetta McGee. It worked out because it was her. And when he sees her, and especially when he's there in her apartment with her, and they look like they're really in love. Worked out pretty well. So I don't know. I like that. There in the movie making, I guess there are some mistakes, there are some pauses. You can see you guys should have just dropped that out or done a better scene or done something. But I don't know. I'll keep my fingers crossed because I hope I still have that talent. My leash is getting short, guys, so I got to do something here. So,
we know you definitely, like I said, we know you have it in you.
Okay.
Like I said, all the work that you've put out so far has been amazing. And I don't throw this term around lightly. And in my heart of hearts, I know Marcus and Joshua, I feel the same way. You're a fantastic filmmaker. And we all definitely give you the title of Master of Horror. We really think that is befitting of you completely. So we already know that anything you put out beyond this point is going to be fire.
Thank you.
We're just looking forward.
Thank you
Oh,
so
yeah.
much. Just don't tell them I'm not a tech guy, so I don't quite know how to push all the right buttons all the time.
Oh man, guys. Look, all like just like you said to us at the beginning of the episode, it's not even about all that. Like I said, once your vision is there and you give it to people that know how to do that sort of thing, that's all you need is the vision and the
Yeah,
right.
right. They'll do it. Get them to do it. Yeah. Can you fix that thing over there, please?
Exactly. Oh, and the
Yeah.
last thing I really, oh, go ahead, John.
Oh, just like one more thing, just to
Okay,
kind
go
of
ahead.
elaborate on Chad's point of just the relationship of Blacula and his wife, and also just not skimming off maybe 15 or 30 minutes of a movie. I also think it's important not to do that because those 15 or 30 minutes is necessary to create the atmosphere of the movie. Like one particular scene that I really liked was like just the fixation on the band in the bar.
Yeah.
I knew you were going to bring that up. Man, they wiped me out. I had no idea. First of all, they had that song made up. And we were in there's a certain club that was really popular in town, and we rented it. And they had extras there and stuff. And not the Fifth Dimension. What was it? The Hughes Corporation. That's who they were, the Hughes Corporation. How'd you like that singer?
Right,
I
like
remember, man. I was sitting there in the director's chair.
I was jamming.
What? She was moving, man. They were on beat. And I just sat there. You get chills, man, because that song was all about Blacula. That was him. It was about him. Moves through the night, whatever the words were. I don't know if those people were still around, but those guys, that was wonderful. Yeah, I was impressed with that. I didn't write that song, but we laced it in there, and it couldn't have been any better than that. I promise you. I loved it. I'm glad you mentioned that. The Hughes Corporation. That's who they were.
Hughes Corporation.
Yeah.
Oh, that's why we say everything that we saw in the film was like completely needed. The only thing is just I was wondering why. We're talking about the dude with the hook. It's dude, use the hook. You got the hook for a hand. You're so scared that you just don't even think to use your hook. That would have been my first thought process, like to swing at this lady with this hook.
Yeah.
I'm just like, man. So that was like the only thing. But no, the movie was, like I said, amazing. We really appreciate everything that you do as a filmmaker. And the last thing we just want to know is because, like we talked about before, you have people like Jordan Peele and Nia DaCosta and a lot of people that have taken what you've done and trying to expand it and diversify horror as a genre. So how do you feel about a lot of the newer horror films, especially Black horror films that have been coming out recently?
I think they're good. I mean, you can't knock them. Everybody has horror is all make believe, and I guess all filmmakers make believe. And you're not doing a Shakespeare script, but it's make believe, and I guess it's what you add to it and what you know about the mise-en-scene again, and how you make a scene work, how you make a scene scary, how you make a scene where somebody really enjoys it, how do you make somebody laugh, how do you make somebody afraid or terrified, not just like that, but make somebody actually terrified because you know something's going to happen. It doesn't always have to be the music. I admire Jordan Peele. I have to meet him one day. If you see him, tell him I said hi or something. People keep saying that he is a fan of mine or I'm a fan of his or something, but if you get a chance to talk to him, tell him I think he's doing great and don't stop. As a matter of fact, maybe it wouldn't be slick for me to take my shapeshifter to Jordan Peele and say, look, man, you guys got money to do. Huh?
There you go.
You think so? You think so? Think he go for it?
Sure he would love
yeah.
to do
Oh,
it.
I'm sure he would. Definitely.
You think so?
Oh, yes,
I just got to get it written, huh?
Yes, sir.
I got to get it written. What if you just go for a synopsis and let me just run with it?
There we go. That's all you need. That's all you need nowadays is a synopsis.
You know what, man? The older directors, the guys who ran the business, and they would walk in the Columbia Studios, and Richard, I can't remember all of their names. I came around when some of them were still alive, and they'd go in the office and say, "Look, I'm going to do a story about the this and so forth and so on, and they'd get the okay. And then next thing you know, the guy would go into the lot. Maybe I've heard other people that I respect you guys. I've heard other people say, you need to see Jordan Peele. Go tell him hello. I think they sent him an email when I was in London or in England and Wales at that Black Horror Festival. I don't know what they said. I was going to ask them to tell me what you wrote, and I can do a follow-up. But I gotta have something. I don't have anything right now. I have the idea, right? I had this snake monster, and tell you the truth, man, I think I'm gonna take my name off. Because it's just down there as a screenwriter. Yeah. So I don't know what he's gonna do. I don't wish him any bad luck. He's a really good guy, old war veteran. But I've got to put my name out there. So I may do that. Tell Jordan I said hi. When you guys tell him I said hello, see what happens.
Oh no, if the situation comes up, I sure will. I'll be honored completely.
Yes.
Really?
Definitely.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Mr. Crain, I just wanted to tell you once again, you definitely made this year so far for us to have you on. Literally, like when I mentioned, because when we were talking last year through Facebook, and I mentioned to Marcus, because we had just actually got done talking about what is horror noir, that project. And we were talking to Dr. Coleman, actually. And when you came up and we were talking about you, and after that, I reached out and you got back in touch with me. And when I told Marcus we were going to chat with you, he freaked out.
Man, because I literally, we had just did that. We were coming off of that interview, and then I had just watched Is That Black Enough for You, the documentary on Netflix. And when he said that to me, I said, man, stop playing with me, bro. Because I was like, this ain't a funny joke, man. He was like, no, I'm serious. I was like, I flipped, man. Yes.
Oh, that's great.
Yes. We've been waiting, man. We've been waiting.
That's really great.
Sure.
That is just really great. I'm impressed. I'm enamored, and I'm humbled. Trust me.
Oh, and we're humbled too, and thank you so much. And Mr. Crain, of course, you're welcome to come back anytime. We can't wait. You know what you have to. Can't wait to see what you got coming out. We're definitely happy, and we will let everybody know, scream it from the mountaintops, whatever you're working on. So we definitely have your back on that.
Okay, we'll do it. That's a promise, Charles.
Sir.
Awesome.
Totally. Yeah.
Yes.
All right, Mr. Crain, once again, thank you so much for being on the Square Round Table podcast. We really appreciate you coming out, and definitely enjoy the rest of your night.